Welcome to the Personal Finance and Coffee Podcast. I'm your host, Gabriella. On this podcast, we talk all things money and finances. Learning how to manage our money and make it grow is a skill that can be learned, that we can get better at. In our environments, money is kind of like a taboo topic. So on this podcast, let us have the conversations. Let us dig deep into how does this really work. We're going to have guests and learn from each other. I encourage you to listen and enjoy the podcast. Remember, you are the CEO of your money. No one else can manage the money for you. This is episode 11, and on today's podcast, we are talking about what do you do when the budget doesn't work. You know, you sit, you make the plans, you're like, this is going to work. And as the month goes along, mid-month, end of month, you're like, it didn't work out. It didn't go as planned. And in this podcast, we are going to discuss ideas that will help you become more consistent to try and identify, okay, this is why it didn't work last time. Let me try and work on it. The purpose of this episode is to help you know that when you try the budget, some days it won't work. Half the time it doesn't go according to plan, but that's okay. That's okay. Nothing is perfect, and I encourage you to listen to this episode. If you find value in it, share with your friends. Let's get right into it. As we get into why budgets don't work, let's keep in mind that everything that we do in life, be anything hard and worthwhile. It could be a relationship, it could be when we're in school. It wasn't easy. You keep trying and then it doesn't work, and then you try again and you keep getting better. It could be at your first job, when you're reading for exams, and budgeting is not any different. So as you get into the budgeting, or as you try to understand why your last budget didn't work, keep in mind that budgeting is just like anything else in life. It needs practice, it needs time to get better at it. And as you do this, as you try to get better at the budgeting process, we need to give each other grace. You're not a robot, I'm not a robot. Sometimes it doesn't work for all of us. So these are the tips that we're going to get into. There are 9 of them, and let's jump right in. So the first tip that I have is that as soon as you get the money, once you're paid, distribute that money. Pay the bills that you have to pay. If it means paying the landlord, pay the water, distribute the money for all the essential, like those things that don't change month to month. When you actually distribute the money, it reduces the chances of the money being spent into things that have come up. So you have your list of rent, your car, water. If you give, if you tithe, if you have a life policy, things like that, distribute that money as soon as the money hits your account. And then there is that variable spending, the food, the transportation, social activities. Know how much it is going to be. Like, it's more of variable spending because it can change month to month. That's the first tip. It will help you stick to the budget, because now you won't find yourself mid-month and you're like, suddenly I don't have enough money for rent because you delayed to pay the rent. Or suddenly, my life policy, I don't have the money anymore because I spent the money. And now you're trying to find ways of getting the money to cover for it. So as soon as you get, that is one tip to stick to the budget or improve the possibilities of making the budget work. Divide the money as soon as you get it. Now the second tip is that budget on a weekly basis and not on a monthly basis for the day-to-day spending. What do I mean? If you receive a salary on a monthly basis, after you've paid all the bills and you remain with the money that is like supposed to take you through the rest of the month, the transport, the meals at work, outings with friends, buying clothes, food at home, things like that. That money that is left, rather than looking at it on a monthly basis of like, I have 800k left for everything, or you can say you can also look at it on the point of view of like, I'm going to put maybe 700 to food, I'm going to put outings, I'm going to have maybe like 300, things like that. Rather than having it on a monthly basis, look at it on a weekly. You can calculate and say, on a weekly basis, this is how much I need if I use a taxi, if I use a bike. If you're a person, if you have a car and you fuel on a weekly basis, do that. But if you fuel on a like full tank, and you know that a full tank takes a certain amount of time, you can also do that. But look at it from a weekly basis, because it's easier to look at it in a week. If you give yourself 200k or 300k for the week, and this will cover my transport, my meals at office, the food at home, the transportation, outings with friends, it's a bit easier to manage. You can check at the end of the week and you're like, okay, so did I stick to the budget? Did it not work? What happened? And when you're making this review on a weekly basis, don't judge yourself too harshly. At the beginning, just take it as information to become aware of how it's working. And this weekly analysis, this weekly planning is for the variables, not rent and what, but like those things that are on a day-to-day basis. That's the second tip. Then the third tip is to track your spending. You need to track how much you're spending, and it helps to track what you're spending on a weekly basis. There are different ways of tracking. You can do it in a notebook, you can do it in an Excel sheet. Just pick one place. If you're like this, if you choose to make your budget in Excel, then you can also track your budget in Excel. You have an Excel sheet where you have the budget and then you have actual. Or you can do it in Google Sheets or an app, depending on what you prefer. But choose one place so that it reduces, the back and forth. But when you say like from the beginning, I'm going to use Excel, it doesn't mean you use Excel forever. You can realize that Excel isn't for you, and it's okay, change. Try an app. If the app you try doesn't work, try another app. The point is you track what you're spending. Now, why are you tracking where the money is going? You track to be aware. You know what you're not aware of, you like just slip through your fingers. You be there, you've left the house with 100K and the day has ended. You're like, where did all this money go? You're like, so tracking reduces that, and also it helps you to stick to the budget that you made because you're aware of when the money that you set for the week is reducing. And also, rather than waiting for the month to end and suddenly you realize that I overspent because you were not aware. If you realize in week number 1 in your tracking process that I've overspent, then you can see how to adjust week number 2. Okay, you say maybe I'm going to reduce my social activities for the next 2 weeks in order for me to fit into the overall budget. Tip number 3 is to plan your shopping. Don't go shopping without a list. This reduces the chances of impulsive shopping. You be there and suddenly you really need this item. And yet when you were coming into the supermarket, when you were going to the market, when you left home, you didn't need it. And our brains are interesting. They will justify why you need it. And we all have our weak spots. Now for me, my weak spots is like notebooks, cute pens, like those stationaries are my weak spot. Like every time I enter a supermarket, I'm like, oh my gosh, this highlighter is so cute. I need to take, like, that is my weak spot. So identify what your weak spot is. It could be clothes, it could be shoes, it could be food, it could be what is your weak spot, and plan the shopping and become aware. Now, when you're planning your shopping, you can also try to plan it on a weekly basis so that you know that you go to the supermarket once a week. Because if you go there 3 times or 4 times a week, you find that the impulsive shopping that you do all those times you go in adds up. So a way to stick within the budget or to kind of try and fit within is to plan the shopping and reduce the number of times that you go shopping throughout the month. If you can go once a week, those are 4 times a month that you're going shopping. Another trick to this shopping thing is that on your notes app on your phone, keep a list of your wish list, the things that you're like, oh my gosh, I need this. Just keep a list of them and sleep on it. Think about it, because when you just buy, there are those things you buy and you regret and you're like, nah, what was I thinking? But you can't return it. You can't do it. So having that list helps you to like think over it and sleep on it. And also the next time you get money, you can just check on that list. You're like, okay, I got some money I didn't expect. Maybe I can choose to pick an item off this list that I would like to buy. The next tip, this is the 5th, is to allocate money for, in quotes, guilt-free spending. Why do I say in quotes? Because for some reason, when people talk about budgeting, we associate restriction, we associate rules to it. We are like, if I start budgeting, suddenly I'm constrained. I can't be free. And having this money that is like for personal spending on what you want, what you enjoy, is very important. It's actually one of the things that really make it possible to stick to your budget. You can't be there and expect, it is unrealistic to expect you to only save, have essentials, month to month to month to month. We are not robots. We need to live life. We can't just be in, it's not sustainable, and we don't enjoy life like this. So try to put money that is for you to just spend. If you're there and you just feel like going to a restaurant, you don't have to feel guilty about it. And also, if you put it in the budget, it doesn't like make it look like you've gone over budget and make you feel guilty and you're like, oh my gosh, again, I didn't stick to it. So just put in that money that is just for you for spending, So it will help you. It will really, really help to stick within the budget, because if it's there, that means you don't touch the food budget, you don't touch the transport. When your friends call for a get together, you're like, yeah, let's go, because you have money in your budget for guilt-free spending. Then the sixth tip that I have for you is to plan your irregular spending. Now, what do I mean by irregular? There are things that we spend money on, but they don't happen on a month-to-month basis, because every month is not the same. Some months you'll have birthdays, some months you'll have weddings, and other months you'll have like maybe home things that you don't buy on a month-to-month basis getting done. So you're trying to plan for them to, like when you're sitting down to if you're making the budget for November, check your calendar, like, okay, this month, who has a birthday, where is the baby shower, where is the bridal shower, who has a wedding, to kind of anticipate and then plan for them. Because when you treat every month as the same, you will soon realize that you feel like you're being over budget on the months that have events, and this kind of makes you feel bad. Like mid-month you can be like, I've already blown the budget, let me just chill, and spend, I will start again next month. And sometimes that's what happens to me, and then the month ends and then you're feeling bad, and you go through that whole cycle. So that's another tip. Try to think through those events that happen, but it's not every month as you're planning. It will help to stick to the budget. Then the seventh tip that I have for you is, don't underestimate how much you spend. You know how people like save money, be frugal. So you find that you're telling yourself, okay, this month I'm going to spend 300K on food at home, but that figure is not realistic at all. Like, it's not practical. So every month you find that you're spending more. Every month you find that you're spending 500K, you're spending 600K, and then you're feeling guilty. But the truth is that that budget that you made of 300K is actually not realistic. So you're setting unrealistic expectations, and they give you this impression of you're not actually doing well with your budget. But the reality is that your household cannot fit in that amount of money. So in such situations, just be honest with yourself and increase the amount that you allocate to that area, especially if it's within your possibility. Not to try and oversay, okay, I'm going to clear all my debts, I'm going to save money to buy a land, buy a plot of car, let me squeeze this side. When you start with that mindset, you will somehow always feel guilty that you're not fitting within the budget. So try to be honest with yourself so that you keep up the momentum. Yeah, you keep up with the momentum and you're aware of what you actually spend. Then the eighth tip that I have for you is that, what does it look like for you? For you, not what other people say. What does it look like for you to actually be within the budget? Why do I say for you? Because people have this definition of sticking to the budget. Spending less, saving more. They're different for everyone, depending on the goal, paying back the loan. So when you decide that for me this month, if I can spend on household items, maybe like 700K, or depending on the size and the number of people, or if I can spend on my household 400K this month, I will have done well. Or if you tell yourself that last month I had very many social functions and I would like to minimize it a bit this month where possible, and you're like, this month if I can spend only like 100K on get-togethers because last month I overspent, if that can be your target for that month. Different months can have different targets depending on what you feel works for you, So try to define, when you define what it looks like to stick within the budget for you, then it makes it easier for you to measure that, okay, so how did I do when the month ends? You're like, so how did I do in this, in this month based on my criteria, not everyone else. Then the final tip that I have for you is that when you make that budget and it's every month, month to month, it's just not working. Sometimes it's simply because the money is not enough. Sometimes we don't earn enough money to clear all our bills, to sustain our lifestyle. We simply need to make more money. We need to get another job. We need to have a business. We need more money, in short. So at times, sticking to the budget starts from becoming aware that I don't make enough money. And not making enough money and failing to match that to your lifestyle leads to borrowing money. So you're constantly, this friend is demanding, the other friend is demanding, things like that. Now, if you're having like loans from different people because you're covering your essentials, you really need to try and find ways of making more money. But if you find that you're borrowing money to go for a bridal shower, to go for a baby shower, to go for a wedding, to go to the bar with your friends, that is a different story. It simply means that you're living beyond your means. You're trying to keep up with your social friends at the expense of your finances. So those are two things that you need to be aware. So ask yourself, am I failing to stick to the budget because the money I make is truly not enough for my essentials? Or is the money that I make not enough for the lifestyle that I want? So because if it's not enough for the lifestyle you want, you can temporarily manage the lifestyle as you try to earn more money. So those are the tips that I have for you. The goal of this podcast is for you to think about, why isn't it working? After you've tried a budget for some time, sometimes you can be like, no, what's the point? You just decide to go back to chilling and like living every day as it comes. And in this episode, I'd like to encourage you that this is work. Straight up, this takes time, it takes trial and error, but it is so worth the energy. Let me tell you, like, the level of peace that I have, knowing that I won't run out of money at the end of the month for my transport, for my lunch. Like, I know that this month in the essentials I'm covered because I've separated the money. It gives you peace of mind. If you forecast and you say, okay, I have a wedding coming up, I have an anniversary, I have a birthday coming up, if you know you have the money, you set the money aside. And when you don't have it, you're like, I don't have the money. And let's say a bonus tip, this budget should be flexible because nothing is written in stone. Some months you find that you've traveled, and that month you're not spending as much on food, but you're having more social whatevers. So when you just be flexible, don't feel so constrained by the budget, because you made the budget. You can change it, and it's okay. It's not like you're failing. You made the budget, you're changing, you change it. You become more aware. I really do encourage you to give this a try. Let me end this episode with a brief story. Recently, my friend gave birth, so I got to know, and this was not in my plan initially. So I thought about it and I was like, this is my friend who has been there for me in different seasons of my life. It would be appropriate for me to go now, but for me to go, it comes at a cost. I have to go with something, the transport that will take me there and get me back home, and things like that. So I looked at my budget and I was like, okay, this month under our home category, we already have the things we need at home. Maybe we received some food from the village, so I can manage that side of our budget so that I'm able to have this social side and see my friend. Because trying to confine yourself and say, no, I can't, what, you just suck the joy out of life. Because being with friends, being with family is important, and finding that balance of sticking to the budget so that your money is not, at the end of the month, you're not asking yourself, where did the money go? Because you had so many socials, but also not over confining yourself so that you're having no social life. And finding that balance is a personal thing. It's like a scale. For some people, they are more of extroverts, some are more of introverts. So finding that balance is unique to everyone. The most I can do here is share with you tips that you can think about and see how it works for you. There are no rules here. I'm just sharing my points of view and my few lessons and experiences. So, an overview of the tips that I've given here. Number one, when you get the money, distribute the money to where it's supposed to be allocated. Number two, budget on a weekly basis for the variables, the day-to-day spending, rather than on a monthly basis. Number three, track your spending on a weekly basis and in one place. Choose where you're going to track the money and do that on a weekly basis. Number four, plan when you go shopping in order to reduce like the impulse shopping, and try to keep it on a weekly basis so that you don't overgo and have chances to overspend. Number five, in your budget, allocate money to guilt-free spending, to spending for leisure. Number six, plan for irregular spending, the things that don't happen on a day-to-day. Check your calendar. Number seven, avoid underestimating the amount of money you spend on certain items, simply to spend less. Be realistic. 8, define what it means for you to stick to the budget. Identify while you're budgeting, and when it makes you like, this month I nailed it. What is that for you? And finally, when the money is not enough, find ways to earn more money. Sometimes it's not about fitting the budget. Sometimes it's about earning more money. Yeah, I really do hope you've found this episode valuable. Please share with a friend. If on whichever platform you're listening to, you can subscribe so that when more episodes come out, you're able to see and be notified. Thank you so much for listening, and have a lovely day. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you found value in it. Please subscribe to this podcast on whichever platform you're listening to it on, so that the next time we have new episodes, you're able to be notified. Share with a friend, share with a loved one, so that you can start these conversations about money. At the end of the day, you are the CEO of your money. No one else can manage the money for you.